Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Nikolai and I'm bringing you a WindWalker guide. Before I start dungeoning and raiding and PvPing and all, make sure your hit chance and expertise for PvP is 7.5 both, so you don't miss, or 3% for PvP. The stats you want to stack are mostly agility, haste, and crit. If you have dual wield weapons, you do haste and mastery. For gems and enchants and all that other cool jazz, make sure you go to Icy-Veins, Noxxic, or AskMrRobot. It's up to you which one you want to choose. I know some people prefer Icy-Veins more, but some people like the simplicity of Noxxic. Alright, let's jump straight into basic rotation. First thing you want to do is constantly jab, so you build up chi. As long as you build up chi, you can use abilities like Tiger Palm, Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick, and Fist of Fury. Every time you use Tiger Palm, you get a buff called Tiger Power, causing your attacks to ignore 30% of enemy's armor, so you want to keep that up at all times. When using Blackout Kick, always stand behind the enemy target, so you deal an additional 20% damage over 4 seconds. If you're in front of the target, you get instantly healed for 20% of the damage done. Make sure to use Rising Sun Kick off of cooldown because you apply Mortal Wound, which gravely wounds the target, reducing the effectiveness of any healing received by 10%. And last but not least, you want to use Fist of Fury. It's a channel ability that beats the hell out of your target and also stuns them. Talking about stunning abilities, you get Quaking Palm and Paralysis that you can use off of cooldown. I suggest mostly using them in PvP or if you need to crowd control several targets in a raid dungeon. Now let's cover some talents that I personally find useful, and we'll talk about other talents. Personally, I prefer Momentum because every time you roll a Chi Torpedo, your movement speed increases by 25% for 10 seconds and stacks up to 2 times. So after the second roll of Chi Torpedo, you start really running around. But if you don't like that, I would definitely choose Celerity. It increases the amount of roll Chi Torpedo that you can have by 1, so you can roll 3 times or Chi Torpedo 3 times. Chi Wave is a little wisp thing that constantly bounces between you and enemies and friendlies. Every single time it hits enemies, it hurts them. Every single time it hits you and your friendlies, it heals you. For level 45, I personally prefer Ascension. I don't see a point for Chi Brew or Power Strikes. Ascension increases your maximum Chi by 1% and your maximum mana by 15% and your energy regeneration by 15%, so it's actually very beneficial. For level 60, I'll personally choose between Ring of Peace and Leg Sweep. The reason why I like Leg Sweep is because it knocks down 5 enemies within 5 yards, effectively stunning them for 5 seconds, while Ring of Peace forms a sanctuary around the friendly target, causing all nearby enemies within 8 yards to be disarmed and nearby enemy players unable to auto-attack. In addition, enemies who cast harmful spell effects within the ring become silenced for 3 seconds. That ability will be very useful in PvP. For level 75 abilities, you get 2 defensive cooldowns and a healing passive. Diffuse Magic blocks out 90% of all magic damage and clears all magical effect, which is personally what I prefer to use. Dampen Harm is good for PvP because you dampen the damage from the most harmful attacks done to you. The next 3 attacks within 45 seconds that deal most damage to you equal to 20% or more of your total health are reduced by half. Dampen Harm can be cast while stunned, which is why it is awesome in PvP. While healing elixir, every 18 seconds you gain healing elixirs, causing your next brew or tea to also heal you for 15% of your total health. So every time you pop your brew or tea, you get a lot of healing. Well, whatever 15% is worth, probably would be best for a tank. And for level 90, out of those 3, I prefer to invoke Xuan the White Tiger because they increase the amount of damage that you do, and you get an awesome ass pet when you fight. Now let's cover some glyphs that I personally prefer to use. Glyph of Sparring. While sparring, you also have 5% chance to deflect spells from attackers in front of you, stacking up to 3 times. Touch of Karma. Your Touch of Karma now has a 20-yard range. And Glyph of Touch of Death. Your Touch of Death no longer has a chi cost, but the cooldown is increased by 2 minutes. For some of the minor ones, I prefer to use Glyph of Zen Flight, which allows me to fly around the cloud and meditate. And also I prefer Rising Tiger Kick because it gives a white streak every single time I kick. And Spirit Roll, which allows me to cast Roll and Chi Torpedo while dead as a spirit, which is awesome when you're trying to get back to your body. If you're fighting a lot of enemies, I'll definitely use Storm, Earth, and Fire. Pretty much the ability splits into 3 aberrations: a Storm aberration, Earth aberration, and Fire aberration. It's at random. And the 2 aberrations that fight right behind the target at all times and constantly do damage. And you just do your own thing. Your damage gets decreased by the amount of spirit aberrations that you have. But in overall, if you're fighting a lot of enemies, it should provide a lot of damage for AoE damage. Now if you're fighting like 5 enemies, I'll definitely use Spinning Crane Kick. This would just cause you to spin in place and you can move around a little bit and just kick enemies in the face and yeah, just roundhouse kick them all around. Also use Expel Harm to heal yourself a little bit while also doing damage. Include that in your rotation in case you need healing. If you're in a raid party, use Zen Meditation as a defensive cooldown. It reduces all damage taken by 90% and redirects up to 5 harmful spell effects against party raid member within 30 yards. Use Spear Hand Strike in order to silence your enemies. The good thing about Spear Hand Strike is when the enemy is facing you when you cast, they also silence for 2 seconds. Some other great defensive cooldowns to use are Fortify Brew, which reduces the amount of damage that you take by 20%, and Touch of Karma, which redirects all damage that you take onto the enemy that you're fighting. What's awesome about being a monk is having Flying Serpent Kick and Roll or Cheat Torpedo. If you need to move around in a raid dungeon or a battleground, use Flying Serpent Kick or Roll. If you need to heal yourself a little, use Healing Spheres. You form a Healing Spear out of Healing Mist at the target location for 1 minute. If allies walk through it, they consume the spear, healing themselves. If you're frozen in place in PvP, there are 2 abilities you can use to get the enemy from far away. Crackling Jade Lightning, which pretty much just causes nature damage to your enemy and has a 30% chance to generate 1 chi, and Spinning Fire Blossom, which deals decent damage. If the Spinning Fire Blossom travels further than 10 yards, the damage is increased by 50% and you root the target for 2 seconds. The bad thing is, it costs 1 chi. The 2 buffs you want to maintain at all times are Legacy of the Emperor and Legacy of the White Tiger. Legacy of the Emperor increases all stats, and Legacy of the White Tiger increases your critical strike chance. To regenerate some energy, use Energizing Brew, which regenerates 60 energy over 6 seconds, can only be used while in combat. And to increase the amount of damage that you do, use Tiger Eye Brew. For each 3 chi you consume through your abilities and attacks, you gain a charge of Tiger Eye Brew. Use Tiger Eye Brew to consume the charges, granting you 3.38 increased damage for 15 seconds. Tiger Eye Brew can stack up to 20 times, but you can only consume up to 10 stacks at a time. And something fun you can do is called Transcendence. You split your body and spirit, leaving your spirit behind for 15 seconds, and you can use Transcendence Transfer to teleport to your spirit. If I were to guess, this ability would be just fun to use just everywhere. Alright guys, this has been my guide on WindWalker Monk. If you have any questions, concerns, comments, write them all in the comment section or send me a message. My name is Nikolai. Have an awesome day.